Hello, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. My name is Steven Voyles, and I am the Chief Enablement Officer at the 334 Group. Today, we're going to be talking about creating alignment with OKRs. This content was originally presented as a part of a live webinar. There were unfortunately some technical issues with the live recording, so we've re-recorded the content for those of you who weren't able to make the live session. For those of you who were able to attend the webinar live, you may notice some changes in the pacing, and we've left out polls, QA, or the other interactive elements. All the primary content is still intact, so don't worry, it's all here. All right, so let's get started. Before we talk about how we can create organizational alignment with OKRs, we should probably level set a little bit on what OKRs actually are. So OKR stands for Objectives and Key Results. The OKR concept was originally created by someone named Andy Grove during his time at Intel. And OKRs are now used by companies like Google, Netflix, Facebook. And OKRs aren't just good for technology companies. Less technology-focused companies like the Gates Foundation and Hilton Hotels use them as well. All of these organizations use OKRs to help them stay focused on organizational strategy and to stay aligned in their organizations. So the O in OKR stands for objective. The objective is the outcome that we're hoping to create over some time period. It's usually quarterly, but some organizations sometimes use longer term OKRs as well. So when we write objectives really well, they are significant, concrete, action-oriented, and inspirational. We'll dig into a little bit more about well-written objectives in a while, but that's a good high-level overview. The KR stands for key results. Key results provide a way for us to measure whether or not we've created the outcome we were hoping to achieve. Well-written key results are specific, they're time-bound, they're also aggressive while still being realistic and achievable. Most importantly, they are measurable and verifiable. Writing OKRs in general is a bit of an art form. There's a lot of nuance to it that's beyond the scope of what we had planned to talk about today. If you're just getting started with OKRs and want a great place to get familiar with the basic concepts, there's a book called Measure What Matters by John Doerr, who had worked with Andy Grove at Intel. And it's a great place for you to get started with the basics of OKRs and some inspiration for some of the stuff that you'll see today. Here, we're just trying to give you enough background to ensure that we can have a meaningful conversation about OKRs when it comes to alignment. So why use OKRs at all? In Measure What Matters, John Doerr talks about what he calls the 4 superpowers of OKRs. I simplified the concept a little bit here for brevity, but the spirit remains intact. First, OKRs help to create focus. It's generally recommended that an organization limit itself to 3 to 5 enterprise-level objectives at any given time. And this way, the framework forces us to have conversations and consider what is really important to the organization, and it makes us focus on just those things primarily. There will always be some normal run-the-business activity, but this forces us to figure out a few things that are important to our organization and focus on those for all the rest of our capacity. Accountability is another one of the superpowers that John Doerr talks about. The transparency of the OKR framework is what helps to increase accountability across the organization. Ideally, OKRs at all levels should be visible to everyone in the organization. If everyone knows what's most important for the enterprise, for each department, and for each individual, it's much easier to create accountability across and between groups. As anyone who's ever shared a New Year's resolution with friends or any other type of goal on Twitter or Facebook, as you will know, making your commitment public has a tremendous psychological impact on your ability to achieve the goal, even when things get tough. Even if you don't think anybody's really paying attention to your progress, knowing that somebody might be looking puts a little bit of social pressure on you, and it helps you to stay the course. So another superpower that John Doerr talks about is inspiration. And this comes primarily from the way that we choose to write OKRs. As we mentioned earlier, objectives should be written with aspirational and inspirational language. So by using inspirational language and telling the story of what we want to accomplish with a given objective, OKRs can create increased engagement across the organization. The story that you tell with the way that you write your OKR is much more powerful as a motivator than having an objective that's written as a simple statement of what you want to do. I'll show an example shortly of what we mean by this, so we'll come back to it. Lastly, OKRs create alignment in the organizations that use them. So this is the focus of this webinar. So we're going to provide a short overview here and then dive deeper as we go on. Because OKRs exist at all levels of the organization and are informed by the enterprise level OKRs and ideally each other, many of them share a common ancestry or are linked to other OKRs in the organization. And so this, combined with a few other factors that we'll talk about later, helps to increase that alignment. So let's take a look at an example of an OKR that's well written. This one is for an insurance company, and this should provide us a tangible reference model for some of the concepts that I just talked about. So as you can see here, rather than expressing the objective as something like increase customer count by X, they've written the objective in a way that ties back to the mission of the organization. So the objective can serve to inspire and inform. They've stated the objective as protect more small business owners and their families in the US than any other carrier. So remember, this is an insurance company. Providing financial protection and peace of mind to their customers against unforeseen problems is at the heart of their mission as an organization. They aren't just selling policies, they are protecting families. And that's something that the people in your organization who are working to make this a reality can get behind. In the key results, I want you to notice that there are no task completed type of objectives. We just need to do this and finish it, and we get points for that. These are objective measurements that we can use to tell us if we're achieving our goal or if we're on track. I think we can all agree that simply finishing a project that had the intent to move some needle in the organization, some measurement that we have, is not the same thing and not as valuable as actually watching that needle move. And that's what we're looking to capture with key results, is what will happen when we actually have the impact on our customers or our marketplace that we're hoping to have. How will those measurements change and how can we see in real time that it's happening? So another important aspect to know about OKRs is that ideally we want them to exist at every level in the organization, and we want them limited in number in order to increase focus. Now, if you're just starting out with OKRs, we don't recommend going this big at first. So typically we have customers pick one area of the company that's excited to try something new maybe, or for some other reason seems like a good candidate, and we start there. As your process matures, and you can show that you're able to create well-written OKRs and track them appropriately, then it's time to expand the concept more broadly across the organization. Now, however broadly you decide to deploy OKRs, you should limit the number of them at each level to maintain focus. At each level, we recommend that you limit yourself to 3 to 5 objectives. At the enterprise level, within each department, within each team, and so on. And that limit forces us to focus on the things that are really important and to pay less attention to things that might be more of a distraction than a real priority. For each objective, we also want to limit ourselves to 2, maybe 3 key results. In this way, We can help to limit the overhead required to track OKRs, and we can force ourselves to think really hard about the leading indicators that will tell us if we're on track, rather than trying to track every metric that we can think of that's related to the objective. Okay, now that we all have the same basic idea of what OKRs are, let's talk about how OKRs can help to create alignment in the organization. We'll start by talking about what alignment is and why it's important. So let's think about a team that might have a common objective for a second. How do you think alignment is for this team? Is this a situation you'd want to be in if some of your team members didn't exactly have the same idea of what the objective is as you do? Clearly, in this situation, that could result in some pretty disastrous consequences when it comes time for them to make their next maneuver. Now, granted, most of us don't work in situations where a lack of alignment could have such potentially catastrophic results. Even so, I think we can all agree that it's really important for different parts of an organization, especially parts that have interactions with each other, to be aligned on what they're trying to achieve, whether that's individuals within a team or groups of teams across several departments that work together. At a minimum, we should want to make sure that we aren't doing anything to hold back other parts of the organization or to be accidentally working at cross purposes against them. But we can do even more than that with OKRs, and we can use them to help make sure that different groups, different teams, different departments are not only not holding each other back, but they are supporting each other moving forward. We'll look at an example in just a few minutes that's going to make this a lot more clear. So now let's talk about some common methods that organizations use to create alignment when they're working with OKRs. So the easiest and most straightforward method to understand is this concept that people call cascading OKRs. With cascading OKRs, enterprise OKRs are set at the highest level. Then all other OKRs across the organization are tied to the enterprise level OKRs. This is not a recommended way to implement OKRs in your organization in the long term, but I have seen doing this work well as a starting point, especially for organizations where this kind of top-down command and control hierarchy is deeply ingrained in the culture. Just getting started with a new goal-setting method is difficult. Trying to use that goal-setting method to change organizational culture can be tough. While I don't think this is the ultimate vision for OKRs in any organization, the pragmatist in me knows this can at least serve as a step in the right direction that you can use and improve upon. But again, I can't stress this enough. Don't become complacent with this model. Implement this in a group and use some of the political capital that you earn through the success of that initial OKR implementation to continue to push for something better. And we'll look at what those other better models look like in just a few minutes. While this can be a very straightforward way to create alignment to top-level objectives, it has some pretty significant risks that we need to consider. First, there's no feedback loop and very little autonomy for individual contributors. While I might be free at my level to decide how to best achieve my OKRs, I have little control over what those OKRs are. We've often found that individuals on execution teams have more direct interaction with customers and therefore a better understanding of what those customers' needs are than the executive suite. So by failing to provide a mechanism to feed objectives and ideas up, we're losing the benefit of all that knowledge. By removing the autonomy that allowing departments and individuals to write their own objectives creates, we're also losing a bit of that engagement that we talked about before. Another challenge with this method is that it just doesn't scale well. Because there's no feedback loop to verify understanding, the more distributed our team and individual OKRs become from the enterprise level, the more risk we have that the intent of the objectives is diluted at the team level or that teams could be working at cross purposes. And the more widespread your OKR implementation is, the more likely it is for that to happen. So let's look at an example of what that might look like. So this example is based on an actual situation we encountered at a consumer services organization we worked with. They had already begun implementing OKRs before we started working with them, and one of their enterprise level objectives was aimed at increasing market share by acquiring more customers. So that's a pretty standard type of objective for most companies, and it should have been a great one to focus on. When this objective was cascaded to the e-commerce department, they interpreted it as a mandate to leverage their ability to generate leads in order to bring more customers into the sales funnel. That makes sense, right? If we bring in more leads, sales will convert more leads to customers, and we will have supported that enterprise level OKR through our departmental OKR. And this is a pretty typical way for departments to handle cascading OKRs, even in the better models. You look at the enterprise OKRs, you think about the core competencies of your group or your team, and then you come up with a way to leverage those competencies in order to support the OKR. And that's actually a really great way to think about departmental OKRs. However, without alignment across departments, that approach can cause some unwanted results. Because this organization was cascading OKRs, there was no mandate and not much incentive to cooperate with other groups. As it turned out, sales operations was actually understaffed, and they were struggling to follow up with the leads they already had in a timely manner. So they were only able to contact around 10% of their leads in 3 days or less. And in their industry, somewhere around 90% of prospective customers chose a provider and signed a contract with them within 2 days. This means that 90% of the time, the leads sales were getting had already chosen another provider and signed a contract before this company had ever made first contact with them. And because there was no feedback loop and no transparency across groups, what e-commerce was doing was investing heavily in generating even more potential customers for sales to basically ignore. Now, I'm not beating up on either one of these groups. They were both operating under constraints that created the situations they were in. They were doing the best they could given the circumstances and the system within which they were operating. However, if they had been given more visibility in what the other groups were doing, they probably could have written OKRs that were more likely to support each other's efforts rather than spend valuable company resources on non-value added activity. We'll look at an example of what that might look like later, and I think this will make more sense. A slightly better way to create alignment is through bidirectional OKRs, and I feel like this is kind of the minimum implementation. With bidirectional OKRs, we're still going to cascade some OKRs down from the enterprise level, and in that way we create alignment to overall enterprise strategy. But departments and teams are still free to create OKRs that relate to local concerns as well. Because of this freedom, it's more clear to everyone that transparency is needed because local OKRs across groups don't come from a common set of OKRs, so people are less likely to assume that they're already aligned, and they'll be more likely to talk to each other and look and pay attention to what other people are writing as their objectives. In order to ensure departments, teams, and individuals are using enough capacity supporting enterprise level OKRs and not just focusing on local concerns, is to have some recommended allocation at each level. I found a good mix to be about 40% top-down OKRs and 60% bottom-up. Now, these aren't hard and fast rules, it's just a general guideline. But the goal here is to use a top-down allocation that ensures we have enough capacity supporting enterprise level OKRs, while at the same time leaving enough bottom-up capacity to provide meaningful feedback to the organization from the parts of the organization that have the most direct interaction with customers. By doing this, we leave room to discover priorities that we wouldn't have considered and use that information to inform the next objectives we create the next quarter. Unfortunately, this model still suffers from poor visibility between teams and groups, because while there is more incentive in this model than in the cascading OKRs model, there still isn't enough incentive for our groups to pay enough attention to what other groups are doing and for them to actually spend their own capacity and resources to support those other groups. When the goal is creating alignment in your organization, shared OKRs really are your best choice. And this is what we want to aspire to, even if we start with one of the other models. In this model, OKRs still cascade down from the enterprise level. We also maintain the feedback loop going up, and we can still have an allocation between top down and bottom up. So those things remain the same. However, what we're doing here is we help to encourage transparency through shared OKRs. Groups and individuals are encouraged to find commonalities or dependencies between their own OKRs and those of other groups and individuals, and share them where appropriate. By sharing objectives across groups, we create alignment between those groups whose efforts need to be aligned in order to achieve the desired results. So here we're going up, down, and side to side. When you are dependent on another group in the organization for your OKRs, it's a really good idea to make sure that their objectives are written in a way that ensures the work you're dependent on is a priority for them. If you can't come to an agreement on shared OKRs, it's unlikely you'll get the support you need from the other group or groups. If it's not one of their priorities internally to their group, they're unlikely to put much focus on it. This might mean you need to look at other options for getting the support you need if you want to keep that objective. It may mean that you need to delay the OKR by a quarter or two until priorities line up better with the rest of the organization, and you can get the support from those other groups that you need. You might also need to consider that whatever you're trying to accomplish with that OKR just isn't enough of a priority for the rest of the organization, that you're unlikely to ever get the support that you need to get it done. And in that case, it may be better to simply abandon it and focus on other objectives that align better with the rest of the organization. But the important thing there is that you had that conversation and that you made sure that if you're going to go forward with that objective, you have the support that you need to actually make it successful. So let's look at an example of how the e-commerce team and sales team that we looked at before could have written a shared OKR that helped ensure their efforts were supporting each other. So in this example, we're still focused on increasing customer count. I improved the wording a little bit to make it more inspirational, but the goal is still basically the same. What's different here is that we found a way for both groups to work together in order to achieve a common goal, and they're both accountable to those key results because this is a shared OKR. So rather than increasing the total number of leads that are coming through the funnel, e-commerce is actually working here to decrease some of the leads in the funnel. They want to make sure that the leads that are coming through are of higher quality to help relieve the burden on the sales team of following up with everybody, and to ensure the leads that they are following up with, that they are spending their time with, are more likely to convert into sales. Another metric we're measuring is the conversion rate in sales. Now that seems very sales centric, but because this is a shared OKR, it won't just be the sales team with that goal. The e-commerce team now has an incentive to try to find creative ways to help sales improve that metric because they're accountable for it as well. And our third key result, we can see that both teams are incentivized to work towards using their unique skill sets to improve something the organization is struggling with. E-commerce has the technological capability to move more of the sales effort into a self-serve model, and sales has the understanding of the market and internal sales processes to ensure that that solution is fit for purpose. So this increases their incentive to work together because they're accountable for the shared objective, and so therefore they're more likely to try to find a common solution together and to support each other. So in any situation, creating alignment between teams and individuals in an organization can be difficult. Now, cascading OKRs can be an easy way to get started with, OKRs, but we should look to move beyond that model pretty quickly, because there are a lot of issues with it. Bidirectional OKRs are more helpful as you scale your implementation, and they really should be kind of your minimum bar to saying that you have a successful OKR implementation. Again, it's okay to start with a cascading model, but we need to move beyond that really quickly into something like this at a minimum. This still has issues when it comes to alignment across groups and ensuring interdependencies, are considered because there's no real incentive for you to work with other groups in that model. Shared OKRs provide a really great way to ensure some capacity in every area of the company is directed at achieving the very top priorities of the company, while still allowing for some local autonomy and feedback based on customer input. In terms of creating alignment through the organization, shared OKRs are the best of these methods at ensuring interdependent groups are working to support each other as necessary. By having different groups, different departments, different teams share objectives and have shared accountability for those things as a department or as a group, we are incentivizing and encouraging cooperation, and that is how we increase alignment ultimately. All right, so that's all we're going to have for today. Thank you for taking the time to watch this webinar on OKRs. We hope you found it helpful and informative. Again, a lot of this is really high level, so if you have any questions or you want to have a deeper discussion, please reach out to me directly at steven.voyles@the334group.com. Or if you go to the website, there's a button there on the top right that allows you to book an appointment with one of our business agility consultants, and we'd be happy to talk to you more about this concept. So once again, thank you for taking the time to view the webinar. We hope you found it helpful, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.